Okay guys, welcome to this video. Here we're going to do a graphing review. This is basically just going to be reviewing things you probably learned in middle school and have most likely forgotten. Or not. So these first four problems are going to be notes. I'm going to walk you through how to graph each one of these lines, and then the last 5 problems are your independent practice. The reason why we're going over how to graph things is because one of the methods I told you of how you can figure out if it's a function or not is to graph it. So here's what we're going to relearn how to do that. First thing, as a reminder, this equation right here is written in slope-intercept. Form. Slope-intercept form, which means it tells you 2 things. It tells you what the slope is, and it tells you an intercept, specifically the y-intercept. I'm just going to abbreviate like that. So the first 2 things to know, or to look for, is this slope and is this intercept. As long as you have 2 things, you can graph any kind of line. Now, the general equation for slope-intercept is this up here. Y equals mx plus b. All right, and if you've forgotten, m is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. And before we move on, I want to remind you that slopes are fractions. All right, this is the change in y over the change in x, or rise over run. Okay, slopes are, oops, that's not an n. Slopes are always going to be fractions, always. Even if they're a whole number, there's a fraction, because every whole number is over 1. All right? And for the y-intercept is a point. It's always a point. X is 0, and then you have your y, which means it's going to be along the y-axis. So always look for these 2 things first, because with these 2 pieces of information, you're going to be able to do big things. Okay. Now that we have that, let's look at this first problem over here. So we have 2y equals 2x plus 4. First off, I like the slope, so I'm going to look for my slope first. M is equal to 2. Always look for the slope in front of the x. That's where it is in the equation. That's where it's going to be in your equation. So slope is 2. I'm going to write as a fraction for this one, just so we can get to know it better. And then our y-intercept is 0, 4. Now that we have that, we can get on with the graphing. Always graph your intercept first. It just makes life a little easier. So there is 0, 4. And now when I do my slope, remember it's rise over run. So I'm going to go up 2 and then to the right 1, since it's a positive slope. So up 1, 2, over 1, right there. I can also go backwards. So I can go down 2 and left 1, and it gives me the exact same thing. Down 1, 2, left 1 right there. This is my graph. Couple things. When you're drawing the graphs, make sure you have arrows, all right? And make sure you have 3 points. 3 points will help you make sure that your graph is going in the direction that you want it to go and that it didn't accidentally turn along the way. All right, let's move on to the next one. We're going to use the same y equals mx plus b equation and apply it over here. First thing we're going to do is find our slope. So m, it's a fraction now, we can see it, but it's also a negative fraction. Don't forget your negative sign. So 4 over 5. I want to point out that there is no x in our slope. There is no x over here. The slope is only a number. The variable doesn't happen over here. And now we need our y-intercept. Right? When I look over here, the y-intercept is after the mx, but there's nothing here. What this means is that there's a plus 0 back here. So our y-intercept is 0, 0. Now that we have that, we can graph it. So I have 0, 0 is my y-intercept. And then I'm going to go down 4 over 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 over 5. Okay? And then I can go the other way as well. So I can go up 4 and back 5. Now when you're graphing, it's a good idea to check and make sure your graph is either positive or negative. So to do that, you would look at your slope. If you have a positive slope, then your graph is going to be going up. So it's going up like that. This is a positive slope because the slope is positive. You can actually look and see over here, there is no negative sign. Over here, though, in our second problem, the slope is negative, which means the graph should be going down. Seems a little obvious. It is kind of obvious, but these are just small tricks for you to use to make sure that you're going in the right direction. If ever you have a negative slope and somehow your graph is going up, that means something went horribly wrong. Go back and double check. Okay. Let's move on to these ones. Now these down here look a little different, but they still follow the same formula, or at least the same logic. So I'm going to rewrite it. Y is equal to mx plus b. Now in number 3, we don't have an x. There is no x in number 3 at all, which means that our slope is 0. We don't have a slope. It is a 0 slope because anything multiplied, or in order to get rid of x, we would have to multiply it by 0. And then our y-intercept is 0, negative 5. Okay, so again, we're going to graph the y-intercept first. So negative 5 is down here. And now we don't have a slope. We have a 0 slope, which means we don't go up, we don't go down, we just go in a straight line. Which makes sense because what y minus 5 means is that at any point on this graph, the y value is going to equal 5. So that means over here the y is 5. Over here the y is still negative 5. Still negative 5. Still negative 5. This equation gives you a horizontal line. Think of it like a treadmill. When you have a 0 slope, a lot of times on treadmills, you can either increase and move the ramp up or move the ramp down. Okay, but if the ramp is at 0, then the treadmill is flat. It's not going up, it's not going down, it's just flat. Now our last example is this one over here. X is equal to 1. Same logic as y is equal to negative 5. Okay, in number 3, y always had to be negative 5. Okay, there can't be a single point where the y value is not negative 5. The same thing is true over here for x is equal to 1. X has to be 1, which means that this is my x value that equals 1, and this is my x value where it equals 1, and this point has an x value of 1, and so you end up getting a vertical line. Now, all of these functions, or of all of these graphs, there is only one that is not a function. And that is this one, number 4. 4 is not a function. All of these other graphs pass the vertical line test. Number 4 is the only one that does not. Okay, well that is it for our graphing review. You need to do the bottom 5, so the rest of the worksheet. We will go over those next time in class. and I will see you guys next time.